Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are warned that this podcast may contain the voices and names of people who have passed away. Listeners are also advised that this podcast may have references to trauma, violence, and other content that may be triggering. It is not suitable for children, and listener discretion is advised. The producers of Black Justice recognise the traditional owner groups and clans on the lands on which it is recorded, the Yagara and Turrbal people in Brisbane. They pay respect to the Aboriginal elders, both past and present. This country has never been ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
We don't want to be those stereotypes like when we fight back. We don't want to be those angry black women, but I also don't want to have to be a strong black woman.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to survive this. I shouldn't have to live through this. I don't want my daughters as black women to have to survive this. I don't want women who are in relationships with my sons to have to survive them, because I want better for them and I want better for the next generation.
This is Black Justice, a podcast sharing the lived realities of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people impacted by the justice system. Stories from survivors, families and communities. Justice told our way. I'm your host, Carly Wallace. I've spent over 20 years in the media and community sectors storytelling and working with our mob. I'm an Aboriginal woman with lived experience. My family and my community have been impacted by incarceration in many ways. So join me on Black Justice, where truth-telling leads the way, because our stories matter and justice begins with telling them. Welcome back to part 2 of Leah's story on Black Justice. In the second part, Leah reflects on the lasting impacts of her experience with domestic violence, even a decade later. She shares how it affected her children, including her oldest son's troubling behaviours, and the heartbreaking moment that she had to consider with calling the police on her own child. This is Leah's raw and powerful journey. Let's continue with her story.
That whole relationship and that experience really shaped my life and my ability to trust men, my reactions to men. And, like just internally, my fight or flight and the way, or even fawn really, when you're in different social settings and men react, and how that's not even your man or an acquaintance, but that trauma from those experiences that I've lived through, it's like it can take me right back there in a second. I know I said I'm 11 years out now, but when it comes to trauma, it's really crazy how you can just go back to being that child again that's afraid in that situation, or that young woman again. And it's almost like, you just can't control your response.
No. And it's so insidious, domestic violence. It will stay with you long beyond, the actual time and place that it occurred and when it happened. Like you said, it was especially when it goes over years, and then you add the complications of, being a black woman with a black man, the cultural aspect of do you keep your kids? Do you take them away? There's so many factors going on. It doesn't matter how many years go by, that PTSD, which is what it is, unless you do that work on yourself, which takes years of unpacking, and it's like a reminder that you just have to keep going, because you survived it. You really did. And you could have come out and thank God you had so many moments of divine intervention, but also that there was something in you as a little girl protecting the older girl going, you're going to survive this, we're going to get out of it. And so there's still that little glimmer of, I've still got strength to get up and go. There's so many of our women, and, some ballers too, they stay and end up dying, or their kids end up dying, or something completely serious happens, like that sister girl there you're talking about. You within yourself had enough courage and strength that you've been able to leave. Not only have you left, you've got 4 children that you've raised, and your kids have disabilities, some have disabilities, and you've been able to survive. You know, like that alone is such a huge feat, sis. And I've seen the growth in you over 20 years. So that makes me sick to even say it, because we've known each other for that long. It's been 20 years, yuck. But I've seen that absolute growth from that young girl. And, you know, I was the young girl, we was young women, to now grown-ass women, mother, to see that. But it never will go. It doesn't matter how many years go by, that stuff stays with you.
Yeah, it does. Like, there's a part of me that's I'm so glad that I left. I really am. I'm so glad that's not my life. And I'm glad I was able to leave the kids. Leave with the kids. But it's also, like I said, like, it hasn't been easy to leave, even after. Like, it's still hard. Like, I'm still raising 3 of his children on my own. I'm doing all the hard yards every day because I had no understanding or awareness of what was happening. And like, even now, with all of the education that is out there and that is available, we still have women falling victim to this every single day. So it really is something that is so underaddressed in Australian society and in our communities.
Yeah.
It's beyond me that, you know, we're having this yarn and I'm 11 years out, but are we only just learning more about it, or have things gotten worse? Like, I feel like it's always been there, but it's so complex.
Yeah.
And there's so much toxic parts of it. And I can't even honestly say that if 19-year-old me had the education around it, I feel like what I have is street smart because I lived through it.
Yeah.
I feel like even with the education around it, so many of us as women will still fall victim to it. Women and men. I shouldn't just say as women.
Yeah, but the stats say mostly women.
Most of the time.
Let's be honest, you know. And
yeah, and it is so, I don't know, it's so complex. And one of the things too that I really want to touch on, because I do believe it's important, is when it comes to domestic violence. And I can even just think back to the yarn and, you know, the language that we use, like, as mob, it's not, we don't label things a lot as what they are.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that as a collective we could get better at. Let's call it domestic violence. Let's call it abuse. Let's call it assault. Yes. That's what it really is. Oh, he busted her up. Oh, he hit her. No, he assaulted her.
Yeah.
He, you know, and we take away from what, like, it's almost like it downplays it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that is our genuine intention, but I think we really need to start labeling things for what they are as mob and as a society, because it's not just the act of violence, like a random fight at a pub. When there is a power dynamic and it's a romantic or intimate or, you know, a really close physical relationship, that's domestic violence. It's not a random act of violence. It's not just him hitting her. There's a whole behind the scenes thing that, like, we're not looking at the full picture. When it's like, oh, he hit her. No, there's domestic violence happening there.
Yeah.
It's this assault.
And family violence, not just woman, man. You know, with you two, it was children, families, communities. It is family and domestic violence for a reason. And I think, like what you're saying, our mob don't want to label it. We try to protect ourselves, right? We're trying to protect us as a community. We don't want the label. We don't want to look like we're perpetrators and our men are perpetrators or our women or whatever. You talked earlier too about you fought back at one stage when he hit you with your baby in your arms and you're pregnant. You said, I feel bad because I fought back. And that I don't want to look like I'm a perpetrator and because there's stereotypes of angry, black, violent women, right? So, but in that moment, they call it fight or flight. And there is obviously no one should be hitting anyone. But when you're in a situation like that, your body went into fight mode especially you got a child. You know, that was a visceral reaction that happens. But we don't want to label things because we are trying to protect each other. But while we do that, the stats will continue to grow higher because we don't want to snitch on anyone. We don't want to cause issues, and it filters out and, you know, becomes bigger than it is. Now you got social media. That's even worse, you know, that adds to it. So we don't label things because we're trying to protect each other. But as a result, we have so many of our people who are just victims of it with no one helping.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And it's sad, and it's like, I don't even want it, like it seems hopeless, but you look at our communities and how rife it is. And I hate and detest so much that as a Black woman, that type of relationship is almost like a rite of passage for us. Like that genuinely cuts me to my core, because I'm like, we don't deserve this. And, you know, we don't want to be labeled. We don't want to be those stereotypes, like when we fight back. We don't want to be those angry Black women, but I also don't want to have to be a strong Black woman.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to survive this. I shouldn't have to live through this. I don't want my daughters as Black women to have to survive this. I don't want women who are in relationships with my sons to have to survive them, because I want better for them and I want better for the next generation. You know, essentially, I think for us as like Black women, you know, you get it so easily and readily, like, you're so strong, sis. And it's like, I don't want to be.
No.
I'm tired. I'm so tired. Like, this load is heavy. I'm exhausted. I just want peace.
Yeah.
Inner, outer, around me. I think I could definitely have let that experience make me bitter, but it's really hard when you have children with someone and you still have to, and mine is very minimal, I must say that, navigate a parent-child relationship. And I've seen and heard of a lot of other examples of women who go through this and have to co-parent with men who are like this, and who use the kids against them, or, you know, play them against them, and that sort of stuff, which is it's a whole other element to it. But in my own experience, which has been really hard too, because their dad hasn't been around, and later now due to his own mental health issues, it's really created this really romantic absent parent type thing. So the idea that they have of this father is just so romanticized, because, you know, it's like, oh, who's coming to save me from my life? My mum's around with me to go to school. And you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like, because he's not around, it's almost like he's viewed as this amazing, great person. And I'm like, are we thinking about the same man?
Because they just don't know any better. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And you know, I don't want to make light of it and have a laugh, but like, they honestly don't know better.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me, like, I'm glad that I shielded them from it as much as I could. I'm glad that they're able to have that romanticized version of him, in a sense. But I also know that's only because of my actions in that whole scenario. Not his, not anyone else's. It was me.
And that's so normal. Like, I remember my mum, I had the same view of my dad. Like, he was completely opposite as my mum. My mum was a growly Black mum, single mum who, you know, you see 24 hours a day and, you know, see or know of this dad that comes or goes or is doing this thing, and you go, oh, he must have a really, like, different life, and I will one day, you know, maybe my life would be like this, you know, because you're just like, you think your mum at the time who's carrying so much, you know, who they'll never know, like, you know, half the stuff that you've gone through. You're working jobs to try and put them through school. You're doing all the things, and then that, you know, just Black kids and just kids in general, they take the mums for granted, you know, and we all did it, and then, but it's so normalized to romanticize that father figure. And sometimes, you know, these dads may never be around, or they're not the person that the kids think they are. And, you know, that's no one's fault at the end of the day. You know, you, you, you can't think too far ahead. You just got to go day to day and see how it turns out, right?
100%, because it's all of that. Like, it was massive, and yes, it still impacts my life, but I still need to have peace within myself and strength and determination and courage to get up and keep going. Like, I
For
can't
them.
let, yeah, and I do it for them, and it's like, you know, juggling it all, wearing all the hats, and like you said, like you know, we all didn't understand. My kids will never understand until, I guess, essentially, if and when they become parents themselves, but we'll still do it anyway because I know how far I've come, and I know, like, you know, you sort of touched on, it's like, oh, the amount of growth, and it's like, yeah, I can recognize that in myself now. I can feel that in myself, to the point, you know, I was referring to myself as like, I don't remember that person that I was, and I think of everything that experience, that life experience had taught me, and where I am today. And I do still have those, like, those good traits, I guess, and um those qualities that just keep me pushing through. And like, while I have survived, it's still, well, it's not easy, and it's not easy for anyone in this market, and it's not easy raising kids on your own, but you just get up and keep going because there's no other option. The kids don't have another option.
No.
Like, if I tap out, who slash what have they got? There's nothing around. There's no security. There's no stability. I'm it.
And the alternative, that what happens to a lot of our women, is that kids come and get taken. That's the
Yeah.
other layer here of domestic
Yes.
violence, of child
Yep.
safety getting involved and removing children. You know, there's probably times I should have been removed. My sister should have been removed. You know, like, all of us at some point with own kids, you know, we've all had some sort of contact with the child safety space, and we work so hard as women and families. Black women don't have the opportunity to have breakdowns, because if you do, your kids will be taken. You could
Yeah.
die. You could end up in jail. Like, that's the real consequences of slipping, even just a little bit, and
You slip up
resting.
and you're gone, or your
Yeah.
kids are gone. Like, yeah. So there's no, you know, like, there's no fraternizing with it. Look, the realities of it is, it really is a juggling act, and we know that it's a fine line, and it is exhausting. But I also know that, you know, where we are now in our life and our own journeys, you know, there's been a really big push for us as women, as Black women, to really look after our mental health and well-being and our physical health. And I know that it's just been, you know, it's quite new for me, tapping into all of those little resources that are out there, just to work on my mental health, because the load is still so massive.
Yeah.
And I'm not even touching the surface of DV that I went through 11 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a much better place with it now. I can reflect on things. I journal, and lots of little self-care things like that for myself. I've seen a psychologist. You know, but like, little things for my own mental health, just to help me get through the day to day, so that way the past isn't creeping back up, but also to deal with the now.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've only started to recently access, because I've become so much more aware of, like, these triggers and these patterns, and yeah, just sort of trying to understand that psychological, those impacts, and that a bit more, and tapping into the resources that are there. Like, I think as Black women, there's that I'll be strong, and there's a certain stigma with those mental health, you know, seeing psychologists or counselors or whatever. But we really need to start to open up the floor for that discussion more, because even if we haven't been through a relationship like the one I just spoke about, we've been in circumstances where we've seen it, and that can impact us.
Yeah.
And just the worries and the stresses of life, especially now,
Mm.
whether you're single, a mother or not, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's so much stresses. It's just something that I really want to reiterate, that like your mental health is really priceless, and it's really something that should be nurtured and taken care of.
I think too, for black women, you don't learn it when you're younger because you never, again, weren't modeled it, but boundaries. Having boundaries for
Yeah.
yourself and actually knowing what a boundary is. And that's a boundary with family, with yourself, with whoever in your life. When you know your worth, you know what your boundary is and what what you will accept and what you won't.
Yep.
You will then start to heal more because you're not letting that stuff come in as much, but it takes time. It takes time. And you and I can sit here as, 40 plus women now, or me, but, 40-year-old plus women to say this, but it's taken us the last, 25 years for us to get to this point of knowing. And it does take a lot. And when you're in those spaces like you were, or you're struggling as a single mom, or your man is doing this or whatever, it's hard in those moments to see the light, to look after you, because you just get sucked dry from that. Can I just ask, at all these years that went on for how many years over that relationship, really, out of all that time, was he ever once arrested, locked up, or anything for abusing you?
No, no, never. No. Like I said, like I never reported it, but neither did anyone else.
Yeah.
Nobody else did. It was almost like that was my life and that was my choice. Like, and I think it's really funny because in our communities, when everybody knows everybody's business and likes to gossip about it, no one will ever jump on a phone and call the police. And I think it's something that it takes a village. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we looking out for each other more?
Yeah. And I think, though, that also comes back to, we don't want to see our men, especially going to jail, or our fathers, our kid's father going to jail, our dads, whoever, even a sister girl. We know what it's like to have people in jail. And even though they are abusing the hell out of you, our first line of defense as mob are like, no, we just can't send them to jail. At some point, we have to say no. If you've done something, if you are doing domestic violence, you are doing this, you're doing that. No, I'm sorry. That is actually a crime. And we have to start seeing that for that, like that language stuff that you were saying that we use in our community to downplay things and to protect each other. This is the result. Men are out here and they'll go to the next person, or they'll go to the next person and do the same behavior.
And it's so hard. Like I had to, and this is actually something that no one, or not a lot of people know, but a few months ago, would have been like November or December last year, had a really big blow up at home. He chucked a chair through my window, and I'm like, oh, you little fun. I was so wild. Like I ended up calling the police. Anyway, so it was repaired and whatever, but I didn't get the bill because the police were involved and there was a police report number. But at the same time, like I was really conflicted about it. But I'm also like, you know what? If I'm just going to let it go, I'm enabling that behavior. One day, you may be someone's father, or you'll definitely be somebody's man, whether that's a man or a friggin' woman, whatever. Yeah. And if you'd done this anywhere else, you would have the police called on you. Now, I've spent enough of my time with this shit controlling my life. And I'm like, I'm not doing it.
No.
If this is how you want to live, you can't come home. You need to, and I know he's got a lot of anxiety. I know there's some mental health stuff there. But at the same time, like we talk about these overlaps, and it gets harder with your kids as they get older because we know, like we were teenagers, like my mum telling me what to do, but I can try and get him involved in things, but if he doesn't want to go, it's too bad. for me, you know. I'm like, can you go to Headspace? Can you think? Like, he had an amazing counselor there at one point, and not interested, you know. But I really had to make that stand for myself and my household. And, you know, there's four kids. And I turned to the rest of them and I said to them straight, I said, wherever I live, if any of you are there and you damage my property, you're not welcome. I'm like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, I'm
Mm.
so sick of having everybody else's behavior, actions, reactions control my life.
Yeah.
And it was really, really hard for me to do. And he was saying stuff like, Mum, you're a fucking dog and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, yep, I want better for you. So you can't treat me like that. So you know that you can't treat other people like it. And yeah, like it probably was really shit of me. But at the end of the day, he needs to learn that there's
Yeah.
consequences for his actions,
Yeah.
even here at home.
And that is tough love, right? We think of domestic violence as like people out there, and you are like, oh, it's a relationship. But it's like, no, actually, it can be our own family members, our own children, our own
Yep.
parents. And we tend to go into, well, that's my child, or that's my brother, or that's whoever. I can't possibly do that because we've been conditioned to not snitch, don't call police, don't get police involved. We don't want them to get locked up. We can handle it. I'm strong. But it's
Yeah.
like reframing and the boundaries for yourself to keep you and your kids safe, and to break that intergenerational trauma now of, no, actually, been through that. I will not handle that behavior, and I don't tolerate it, and I won't. There will be consequences. And if you don't pull up those microaggressions early, it might be a chair, but that chair could be someone's head the next time. So
100%. And it does,
yeah,
like, it does make me frightened. And, you know, like, it is, like, it really is tough love. And I know this is like a little bit of a different tangent, but it's, if we enable, you know, our cousins, our brothers, our sisters, or whatever, whoever, it doesn't just continue in our homes, it will continue in every home they're in, whoever's putting up with them. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'm like,
definitely.
fuck that. Like, you're going to be somebody's partner one day,
Yeah,
whoever that is. And if they're going to come to me because they need help, that's what I have to do. You know, what I'm essentially trying to do for him, I'm like, you know, counseling, regulation, you know, trying to get things into place. But I also know it's really hard at the age that he's at. But I know he's only 15 heading towards 16 now. But if it's enabled, there's a lot of other things there. Like when he's 20, when do I pause it? When do I
yeah.
stop it? When is it okay to pull this up or to report to the police? Because, you know, we can essentially, and we've seen it in our communities, we can make excuses forever.
We do.
Yeah, yes, we do. Oh, you know, she shouldn't talk back, or he shouldn't talk back, or blah blah blah. That's why all we get hit or whatever. And it's like, no, I'm just not. We're not doing that.
Or they have mental health. They got trauma. They got issues with. We make excuses for
Yeah,
the violence, and I just want to acknowledge this, how impossibly hard that decision had to be for you to make, to call the police, you know, on your own 15-year-old son in that moment, to go, here's my crossroads. You know,
yeah,
at first you've got to get past your own triggers of violence happening around you, and
yeah,
then protecting your children. And, you know, in that moment of like,
mm,
I have to make this decision. And you made that, you know, it's friggin' impossibly hard. And the things that come with that, the regret, the sadness, the heartbreak,
yeah,
but
yeah,
also
100%.
trying to stay staunch in that.
You know, it's really complex, like with the police and that too. Like, and they, so the reason why I sort of think, oh, too, like the kids were freaking out, and the kids were like, they're at that point where they were like afraid of him. And when the police come, and they were pretty good, like they were pretty good, but like they were a little bit too like, oh, you know, like not trying to make it more, but just sort of were you feeling really afraid of him and that?
Trying
And
to
I
amp it
think,
up.
yeah, and I was
Right.
like, I turned around to him and I said, you know what? I said, I wish I could slam the little. That's exactly how I spoke to him.
Yeah.
I said, this is how I felt. I said, but you know what? The reason why I didn't, I said, it's not even because of the kids. I said, it's because I'll lose my job. And then, the kids, and it's not even funny, but like, that's literally, I'm like, don't try and make it more. Like, I could fucking slam him, but
You
I'm
got
aware of the
sense.
consequences for my actions.
Yeah.
So
And
this is why you guys are here.
you also
And
know
I don't
that,
want to be doing that.
and that's not going to work. We know them things don't work. You know what I mean? As much
Like, I
as
want better for him. Like, it's like I lift
exactly.
you and then what? Bella, then you just get bigger and stronger and you lift somebody else. Like, I just know, like,
Yeah.
this is the line, you crossed it, and that's it. So he's sort of been like out at mum's and, he's asked to come home a few times. And I'm like, no, not until you start to do something for yourself, bud.
Yeah.
Like, I just need to have that really firm boundary there. Like we spoke about boundaries, because otherwise I'm going to be overrun.
And enabling, because it's like,
And another, yeah.
I need you to know I want you to do something for yourself. Yes, it looks like it's for me, but no, it's actually for yourself. Either mental health, as you get older, I'm sure drugs and alcohol in the mix will come into it at some point, as you do when you get older. All of those things that you can go down the path of, but it's like, I need to see you address one of those things right now to show me, but actually it's for him, without him
Oh,
even knowing.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I'm looking out for you without you knowing. But it's like you can't come home unless there's some kind of action on your part. And I know that he's thingo with it. He is. But I'm like, one day you'll
Yeah.
understand. I never ever thought I would or could do that. But that was definitely a big line for me. I'm like, not my house, bros. I've been
Yeah.
through everything else to get here. I can't have my house busted up because you're in your
That
horrors.
that trajectory of being a woman who's gone through DV, who's done everything to get out of it and try and protect the kids and still have, you survived it, but you didn't come out unscathed. You still have lingering things from that. And now no one really ever talks about the bit of a single woman raising a young black man, and then
Oh,
these behaviors are starting, and you can see the escalation in their physical, their mental, everything. And how now your fear is my son going to be locked up? Would he go down that? These are
is
real
he going to be
thoughts.
like that? Yeah, 100%. Like it definitely is. And it does scare me. It does. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. But it's so hard to know that you've got to like let the grip on the reins go.
Yeah.
With your kids, because you can't make their decisions for them and you can't
No.
pay the price, and it's for them for their action. So I'm hoping that he's learnt from that experience, but at the same time, without other things being checked or other things happening for him, I know that may like it probably
It's a
it's not
risk.
going to work.
Yeah.
I just have to do the best I can
Yeah.
for them, which I believe, like I wholeheartedly believe I'm like that's what I'm doing, but I'm also trying to not enable, because I just know that it's a very slippery slope when those sorts of things happen, the big things, because it's like, if I allow this,
Mm.
do I enable you stealing? Do I enable you using drugs? Like where does the line get drawn? And because essentially, like when we're looking at our communities and even our kids and ourselves, it's not just one. It's not just domestic violence. There's, like you said, we're not
Yeah.
trying to make excuses, but there's mental health, there's disability, there's alcohol, another drug, all of these other things that tie into it. It's not just a standalone thing.
If you could go back to that 19-year-old girl, what would you say to her?
Um, there'll be a few things. Like, number one, don't give up your studies. Always find a way, like whether that be your education or your job, a way for yourself to be financially secure. And it's not even that, or relationships don't last, whatever, but, people die. Like, there's so many other elements to it. So find a way to make yourself financially secure, whether that be through study or working your way up. That would be the first thing. And the second thing would be to trust myself, like trust yourself, because I think even with all of the experiences, like I wouldn't even go back and say, don't be with him, because I wouldn't have the kids. I wouldn't have the experience. I wouldn't change it. But I would just like to know, just to trust myself enough to know that I'll be okay. So trust myself, know that I'll be okay. And that's it. That's all I would say. I wouldn't change anything else. But that's always my thing. Like, you know, when you see on like Facebook groups or whatever, like what advice would you give to younger women? And my thing is always your financial security, because how many women stay trapped in these relationships because of the financial side, especially now in this market. Man, once we have our own money, these men, Kai, like they, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't need you to pay my rent. I don't need you to buy my house. I don't need you to fuel my car or pay for my car or whatever. So like, what's that thing that you would read all the time? All they have left is the way that they treat you, which shows who they truly are. Because what else can they give us if we're financially secure? So that is my biggest thing. Get your education or work your way up, like have your financial security, because they can't take that from you.
Yeah.
You know, your significant other, they can't take that from you. Doesn't matter what they put you through. Yep, they can't take that from you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sis, for sharing your yarn. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
That was Leah's story. It's one that deeply resonated with my own story and my own upbringing, and I know will resonate with many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and women more broadly. Leah's strength and resilience, it just shines through her journey and her story. And if you're out there listening and you're going through family and domestic violence, just know that there is support available. I'll share the hotline information at the end of this episode, and please reach out if you need to. If you're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and need support after listening to this podcast, you can call 13Yarn's support phone line on 13 92 76. This service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Lifeline is also available to everyone. You can phone them on 13 11 14 or 1800 RESPECT on 1800 737 732.